The Acts of the Apostles is very much about the apostles preaching the gospel. Gospel means good news, and a couple of weeks ago we talked about what this means, what's in the gospel, what are the elements of it. Good news. Is it good news though for everyone? Gospel doesn't always get a welcome from everyone. The wise men came to Herod with the good news that a new king had been born. But Herod didn't see that as good news. That was a threat to his position. King of the Jews, that's me. This is a threat to me. And his first reaction was to try and eliminate this new threat. Now, Demetrius in Ephesus is in a similar position. Ephesus was a large, important trade centre in what we now call Turkey. And it was dominated by the Temple of Artemis. One of those big Greek things, rectangular with white columns all the way around. And why do they have this temple in Ephesus? Well, it was said that a stone had fallen from heaven with the picture of Artemis's face on it. And so the cult of the goddess grew up there. Who's Artemis anyway, you might say? Well, it's the same goddess as the Roman Diana. The Greeks and the Romans had very similar setups in their system of gods and goddesses, and there are very often parallels. The chief of the gods was Zeus in Greece, Jupiter in Rome. The goddess of love was Aphrodite in Greece, Venus in Rome. The messenger of the gods was Hermes in Greece, Mercury in Rome, and so on. So Artemis, Diana, same thing. The goddess of the hunt. But, perhaps more importantly, in this situation, the protector of women. Women were in trouble. They needed protection. Then Artemis was the one to go to. And so the religion of Artemis, as practiced in Ephesus, was very much woman dominated. There were fertility rites, which we won't go into now, but it was very much run by women. And maybe this casts a bit of light on what Paul wrote to Timothy. Timothy was the leader of the church in Ephesus a bit later. And Paul wrote to him that he should tell the women to keep quiet in church. Maybe not because women should always be quiet, but because he wanted to show the difference between the woman-centered cult of Artemis and the following of Jesus. Anyway, there was this big religion in Ephesus, but it was also big business. There were silver models of the temple on sale, models of the stone that came down with the picture of Artemis on it. The Artemis was on their coins as well. And so Paul is challenging the whole social and economic order here. And Demetrius and his colleagues felt threatened. Their livelihood was at risk. If Paul was right and he started turning people away from the worship of Artemis, then who's going to buy their silver temples and silver stones? As he said to his fellow craftsmen, we've got a good little thing going here. He was, of course, sensible enough in his speech to add that the reputation of Artemis was at stake. He didn't want to appear too selfish. Oh, we've got to defend the reputation of our goddess Artemis. And so he got a mob together, marching along and shouting, not shouting, we want our income, we want people to buy our models, but great is Artemis. It's righteous sounding stuff, sounds good when you're marching along as a mob. We can picture this, we've seen enough of it in our own times. And they got to the theatre, not like the theatre we might think of in Newport, for example, but this is a big open-air stadium. There were several in Ephesus. The largest one could hold 25,000 people. And they reached the stadium, the theatre, and at this point, the town clerk intervenes. Well, they call him a town clerk. He was an elected person to run the city, more or less, and a mayor might be nearer to the sort of thing we could understand. And he came along and he quietened them all down. He got things back in perspective. Now, if you think of the last chapter, the previous chapter in Acts, there was Gallio, the Roman governor there, who also intervened in a situation which was getting out of hand. Not all authority in the times of the Acts was bad. Sometimes God could use the authorities to calm things down and for people to see a bit more reason. Though when we talk about the perspective that the town clerk got into the situation, the main perspective was keep Rome happy. If we have a riot here, there'll be trouble from above. And that's much the same as Pilate's attitude, wasn't it? Pilate washed his hands of the situation. I'm not guilty of this. This is your responsibility. If you want to kill this man, Jesus, that's your responsibility. I don't want a riot here. This whole story has a sort of 21st century feel to it, doesn't it? Well, human nature hasn't changed, so not surprising. People's own interests take precedence. Whatever's right, whatever's wrong, what I want, what's in my best interests comes first. You can build all the wind farms you like, good thing too, but not in my backyard. You can pedestrianize the shopping centre if you like, as long as you don't do it outside my shop, because I need the customers to be able to come and pick things up with their cars. And you can make up your own examples of this. We often dress this all up in very reasonable language too. The slogans we shout are not obviously selfish, but behind protests is very often this selfish attitude, what's best for me? And sometimes we need to ask ourselves that, what is important to me? If someone says to you, who is your God? The real answer is, your God is the thing or the person which is most important to you. For Demetrius, the most important thing was his money, his income, and the worship of the goddess Artemis, because that's where his living came from. Well, we don't worship false gods, do we? Do we? If maintaining a healthy bank balance is our priority, then money is perhaps becoming our God. If getting promotion is the main aim of our work, then maybe position and honour are becoming our God. If the spotlessness of our house, of our home, becomes an obsession, then maybe that's becoming some sort of God. You see, things which are in themselves not bad can be gods. Your family. If you put your family first above everything else. Your country. My country, right or wrong? Well, Or a football team. If the most important thing for you is whether they won on Saturday or not, just be careful. Are they becoming too important to you? So, an evangelist like Paul comes along, And he says, I've got good news for you, the good news of Jesus Christ. And the good news is that you can be free. Well, maybe not everybody will see it that way. Demetrius didn't. The Bible has lots to say about the day of the Lord, when the Lord will return, when God's reign will become established. And always in the Bible, when they talk about the day of the Lord, they're talking about good news for some, bad news for others. There's a line in the hymn which says, a shout of joy, a cry of anguish. If the Lord returns and you're looking forward to that, it's a shout of joy. If the Lord returns and you're actually in the business of making other things much more important, then that could be a cry of anguish. See, the gospel offers people freedom, not freedom from evil. It doesn't get us out of anything bad ever happening to us, but freedom from the power of evil. But that's only if we're prepared to give up things which have taken God's place. The step of commitment, the step of receiving Christ, conversion if you like, is a simple step, but it's not necessarily an easy step. We have to look at what's important to us and whether it's become too important, whether it's taken the place of God, the rightful place of God in our lives. Only full surrender enables Jesus to fill us with his love and power. We leave Acts for the moment. We've been going on Acts for several months. Next week is a one-off theme, and then in September we'll be looking at God's creation. But what have we learnt from the Acts? Well, firstly, the early church wasn't perfect any more than we are. There were people who got things wrong, as well as those who got them very right. But even if they weren't perfect, the early church had power. There was an astonishing number of people who came to faith. And that power was based in, firstly, their knowledge of the risen Jesus. And secondly, in the Holy Spirit living and working in them. And when has Jesus ever ceased to be alive? When has the Holy Spirit ever been taken away? What they had in the early church is available to us. Think about it.